Good morning, and this is Gonzo, and I'm here with my co-host Ash, and you're listening to Genuine. How you doing, Ash?
I'm good. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing really good. It's been an interesting week. I know that everybody has been paying attention to a lot of the things that have happened in the news.
Yes.
We had well, the first thing is that Barbara Bush died, which is an incredible time in the history of our nation, because she was definitely one of the most visible figures and most public figures, although she wasn't out there beating the bushes, no pun intended,
Right.
like everybody else was. But clearly a transition in generation, and it was, I saw the news. I read a couple of the news articles about her. So that was amazing in terms of reading her history and her story and how she came about. And, I also
Who she was and what, like, just the legacy that she
right.
created and the legacy she will leave behind. It's
Yeah.
just incredible. I had the chance of meeting her and former President Bush multiple times. I went to
No
church
way.
with them. Yeah. I grew up going to St. Martin's in Houston, and that's where they have been members of for years. And back when he was president. And so they've been regular churchgoers. I mean, obviously I don't go there as much now because I'm in Dallas, but when I would go home for Easter or Christmas and everything, you'd see them every service. And they were just the kindest, most humble individuals. Yeah. I mean, I love the fact that I had the chance to meet her a couple times, and she really is what everyone says that she is.
Well, you know what, and you're one of the many that actually had that opportunity of shaking hands and interacting with them. I never met them, but always it gave me the impression that they were very genuine people.
Yes.
They were really caring, and they were really. I mean, if you read the history of their how their political history, George Bush Sr. Political history, you can see that she was so devoted to the family and also to the career of those men that later on became either governors and or presidents of the United States. But she was the glue that kept everything together, it seems like, in the household.
Yes, she was the head honcho.
Yeah, no, and she was the matriarch. She was also termed the silver fox because of her white silver hair. Yeah, it was actually it's almost like the passing of a major president or so.
Yes.
I think that contrast her to Clinton, Hillary Clinton, who has definitely been on the spotlight, boy, in the last several years, but not as dominant. I think what she reminds me of, maybe a little bit lesser, is Michelle Obama, who was very, very much another national figure who basically took on the masses when it came to education and care of children and stuff like that.
Right.
So incredible times, passing away of a national figure. And, what's going to happen. President Bush is next in lines. Unfortunately, he looked frail. He looks very
well. And the thing is that it's always been more he being the frail one. Because I remember sitting in church and Mrs. Bush would come in before the service started, and then Secret Service would bring him down in the wheelchair on the side after everyone had proceeded in and everything like that. And so, and he's been the one that's, to my knowledge, has been in and out of the hospital more often. But no, I think she lived such a wonderful life.
I didn't know that she was sick either. Ironically, again, my recollection was that he was sicker. He was the sickest one, or he was the sick one of the two. She was just going about and just taking care of him and all the other stuff. So when I heard that her health was failing, I was like, where did this come from?
Right.
Which actually it's totally unexpected. At least for me, it was totally unexpected, because I would have thought that it was actually President Bush was the one who was going to go first and not her.
Right.
So I don't know. I mean, I'm sure that there's details that I've missed about her condition and everything, but needless to say, an incredible time in our political history and the history of our country, the passing away of
a former first lady.
Yeah, former first lady. And, if any of the Bush family are listening today, we send our condolences, but boy, you should be. And I know that they're proud of everything that lady did for our country and certainly for the family. It's a huge loss, but she lived a great life. I mean, talk about living an amazing life. So
she lived it to the fullest.
Absolutely. So how was your week?
It was
did anything
good.
happen? How's the house?
House is coming. We're going to go over there later. The interior paint should be done. So excited to see all that come together.
If the paint's coming up, it's close to putting out money, baby.
I know. Are you kidding? I feel like we're just bleeding money this whole process. But no, I'm really, really excited. Olivia loves going over there because your voice echoes when you're in there, and she just runs through and yells and hears her own little scream, and she wears herself out. It's awesome because there's nothing that she can hurt yet in there or break.
You're right.
So
does she know that she's getting a room and what her room is and which is her room?
Every time we go upstairs, I'm like, "You want to go see her room?" And she flies down the hall to her room. So it's exciting.
So are you just going to paint it right now white and then start painting, selecting colors to paint the rooms? Or what are you going to do? I mean, we did it differently. We painted everything white first, and then we actually brought in somebody to help us select colors. But what are you doing?
We're doing the majority of it's going to be a whiter color, but then we have an accent color on the center island in the kitchen and then on the cabinets in the living room. And then we went a little bit bolder in the study and the powder bath with like a darker, it's called charcoal blue. And so just something that's really going to be just a statement.
Cool. Yeah.
So we've had someone help us with that, and then picking the hardware that'll really pop once all those colors are in. But no, I'm more of a clean white person, and then I'd like to just bring in other decor aspects to really elevate a room. So that's where we're going right now. But then we'll be picking the floor stain and carpet, and we'll be moving along here before we know it.
So are you getting somebody to help you with the interior decorating, or are you doing all yourself?
No, I'm getting some input.
Yeah. I mean, with a house as big as yours, it probably, unless you're a professional interior decorator, it's probably wise to get somebody to do it. So that way the house flows. Yeah.
Well, especially because we're going to be getting the majority of our furniture is going to be new. And so it'd be one thing if I already had a vision of what we're working with and then what we can add. But when you're starting from scratch, it's like, oh, wow, I don't have the creative capacity for that.
Well, and I told you about our first home, the one that I put a nail through the Freon line. Remember that story that I thought that we hit the gas line? Okay. But so we have done it actually differently at different stages of building our homes. I'll tell you that we have owned, let me see, our first home was in North Carolina. And that was the one that I hit the Freon line with a nail when I was putting up the crown molding story. But I'll tell you that home in particular, we did everything ourselves. I mean, first of all, we didn't have any money. And so I was a resident and Natalie had like a side job or a part-time job. And so whatever little money we scrapped up between, living and paying our bills and our loans and all that stuff, we basically had whatever was left, we had to sort of decorate the house. And so we were really, really, frugal at that time. I mean, we're still slightly frugal, but certainly not as we were, back in the day when I was a resident. But I remember we selected the paint. We painted the kitchen, which actually probably one of my favorite areas. The kitchen and the living rooms were the two favorite areas of that house because we painted it and decorated ourselves. Well, everything was decorated that way. I have to say that all that little house was actually an effort and love because we really put a lot of effort in it. But the kitchen was Carolina sky blue.
Okay.
And so it was white. There were white cabinets, and so it popped out everything. And we had it. It was really homey. It was really cool to sit there at the kitchen.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and then the living room. It was basically not that big, but the living room and dining room were all in one big section of the house in the front of the house, and we painted some of the side walls a particular color that just made it really homey. And I love that house. But you have to be so excited about getting finally to move into your home.
Oh, I am. I'm so, so excited. And I'm so excited for our sweet dogs, for her to finally have a yard. Like, she sits in this townhouse and she just looks out the window, and I'm just, because she loves
Oh,
being outside. So I'm just like,
right.
she's going to be so happy when she can just meander outside on her own and just
That
lay
is
in the
so
sun.
cool. That's cool. Are you putting in a pool too?
No, we are not.
Okay. Are you planning on putting a pool in?
I don't think so. Not yet. Maybe once we have kids that are older, but no, that's not on our priority list right now.
Okay, good. Because I'll tell you what, that's another house.
Yes.
It's brutal. It's brutal having a pool and all that stuff. We basically had to. Well, I didn't have to do it, but we wanted to do it because of Texas weather and everything. It's it's literally impossible to live out here without having a pool or somewhere that you can go and see
Right.
sunrise from the hot weather, particularly in the summer and early fall months, which gets brutally hot. But well, good. Well, I'm excited.
Yeah.
For you.
Yeah. We're super excited.
Let me know when the housewarming party is. I'll come over
I
and
will.
sort of crash it, and we can do a show from the house.
Yes. Sounds like a plan.
That's awesome. So listen, I had there were a couple interesting topics that happened to me over the week. And I wanted to get your opinion, and anybody listening, I want to get their opinion so that at least, we can start a conversation about things, because I may be wrong on this one, and I totally get it. But I just think that there's different ways of actually looking at these situations. Okay, so I'm going to start with brands. Okay, let's talk about brands. All right, and I'm trying to figure out how to use this. Okay, so I'm going to talk about, let's say that GoPro. This is the problem that GoPro has. Okay. All right, so we're talking GoPro, big company that basically, for those of you that don't know GoPro, I mean, everybody knows what a GoPro is, right? I mean, I guess.
Right.
Okay, so as a big company, it's got this brand, and maybe GoPro's not the better. Okay, I got a better company. Let's pretend we're going to talk about Hewlett Packard.
Okay.
Hewlett Packard, HP, huge company, right?
Right.
Okay. And under Hewlett Packard, there's a number of services and things that they sell. Correct. Services that they sell. Okay. So you can talk about ink cartridges. You can talk about printers. You can talk about computers. I'm sure that if I look at the portfolio of Hewlett Packard, it's got a number of things that it does, right?
Right.
And a number of things that it sells. Okay. So I'm going to use Hewlett Packard as the analogy here of what happened over the week. And I'm trying to still sort of wrap my head around it. But I figure that you give me some insight of what you would do.
Okay.
So Hewlett Packard has basically, a bunch of people that are selling products. Okay.
Okay.
And so in this particular division of there's somebody who is on, the east side and somebody who's on the west side. Okay. And they're kind of selling now, one of the interesting things for Hewlett Packard was that we never knew that we were going to be successful. And I mean, Hewlett Packard didn't know that we were going to be successful in this particular market. Okay.
Okay.
So somebody decides that they're going to go into this particular market and try something out. And I'm going to use a story of how this played out. This salesperson, okay, sales rep, let's call him a sales rep, has basically gone to the boss and said, what do we do with this area, this particular marketplace that, that's there for us to take? And the boss says, why don't you go over there, take a look, and come back with some information. And he sends two of his favorite salesmen.
Okay.
So one salesman comes back and says, you know what? There's a lot of people without shoes over there. And the boss says, yeah. And he says, yeah, I don't know. I noticed that. Not a lot of things to sell over there, particularly in shoes. Nobody wears shoes. He says, okay. The boss shuts up and says, okay, that's interesting. Second guy comes over and says, a lot of people don't wear shoes. And the boss says, yeah, I heard. We can sell a lot of shoes over there.
Right.
I mean, if you really try. So with that analogy, the person in sales for HP goes out there and actually over the course of a very short period of time becomes successful. Okay. And establishes basically, a store, a Hewlett Packard presence in that market, which there was none. Okay. It took him about a year, to do. So, as things start, so that's kind of the right now what the organization, the Hewlett Packard, would look like. But the person on this particular side, this new encountered side of the market, is trying to sell the product and get products sold and things like that, and goes to a particular store and says, hey, I'm Hewlett Packard, and I want to sell you, this product line. I got some products to sell you. Okay. And then the next thing that happens is that the person in the store says, yeah, well, that's interesting because, this person in Hewlett Packard has come over and tried to sell me the same product that you are trying to sell me. And so the guy who's in the new market says, really? That's odd. Now, it so happens that the person that made the sales pitch, the first sales pitch, which the new guy is actually finding out about, has been in the market forever. Okay? Has been in the market for 30 years. Okay? And that person in that group of sales, that sales section, is well known. So now, it's like, that's interesting. Well, the guy who's in the new market says, okay, well, let's see what happens. Well, apparently this move from the person that has been doing this for a while seems to be unrecognized by Hewlett Packard. Okay. The next thing is that the new sales guy that is in the new market gets a call and says, you don't want to go there. You don't want to go to that area. You don't want to get into that type of situation with that store because, it wouldn't be good for you.
Like almost like an intimidation call?
Well, the new person doesn't know if it's a warning, a true warning of a friend, right?
Right.
Or it's an intimidation call.
Okay.
Right? So at this point, the guy who's in the new market doesn't know. But because of history, okay, it seems that it is an intimidation call. Now, the messenger is probably trying to deliver a message to protect the guy who's in the new market because they have a relationship, they know each other, he likes him.
Okay.
But nonetheless, the way that the message is delivered does sound like an intimidation call, which, first of all, is wrong, right? If that's the message that's being delivered. And
that's the intent of the message,
right? Or
is
that's
to
the intent.
be
So
an
that
intimidation.
You back off. But anyway, so that type of action occurs, which definitely throws the guy in the new market into a tailspin, saying, "What the hell's going on?"
Right.
Because we're HP. It's the same group. Part of the problem is that, as you can imagine, that with a company as large as HP, you can understand how things probably were run in the past. And basically, you did have a very cannibalizing relationship if you didn't have structure around it, right?
Right.
Because if it's a free-for-all market, then anybody could compete and sell HP products.
Right.
Okay. Now I'm going to add to that in a new market, you have to prove yourself and you have to maintain growth, right? And part of it is expanding, right? So the new guy finds himself trying to deliver on services that may not be in the best interest, that is in the best interest of the company for HP, but maybe not for the guy who's been doing it for 30 years, because what's happening is that person or that group had been holding on to the market for 30 years. And now you got this new guy that basically it's delivering the mountain to Muhammad rather than Muhammad coming to the mountain, and is doing a pretty good job of actually selling things. Well,
okay.
There's also, the guy who's been doing it for a while, or the group that's been doing it for a while, may find it threatening that they sell products for Hewlett Packard because it erodes into their bottom line. I get it. Okay. But as Hewlett Packard, the brand is the one that's successfully growing, because in the new market, people were not buying Hewlett Packard. They were buying, I don't know what other brand of well, let's say Dell, or I'm just using that as an example, or computers that are not Hewlett Packard. So we're losing market share to the competition. And part of it is that the impression of the new guy is that in the new market, that the persons who've already been doing this for a while, that are completely far away from where he's at, they are also putting blocks, what it seems to be is blocks, to try to grow other sales services for Hewlett Packard. So yeah, you can sell cartridges, okay, but you can't sell printers because you don't have the expertise to maintain the printers if they come to your Hewlett Packard store. So again, but the question becomes then, in my mind, here you got an organization as large as Hewlett Packard, okay?
Okay.
And you've got a successful new market, okay? And you've got this old group that has been doing it for a while that's trying to infiltrate the same market or region of the market that the new guy is in. How do you deal with that effectively? So that we all play Hewlett Packard.
Play fair?
Well, play at least so that everybody has a chance of growing, and there's not this competition between sales sections. So my question to you is, and the good thing is, and let me preface is that there's a new chief in Hewlett Packard that basically is making sure that everybody is the same brand. Everybody is Hewlett Packard.
So that everyone's working cohesively, essentially.
Well, at least that everybody's under the same brand, and you're not selling different products and different brands to different people, to the same people, to confuse the market. You follow me?
Yeah.
So how would you effectively, if you were dealing with that situation, how would you deal with it?
Oh gosh, I don't even know.
Well,
it's one of those things to where it's like, because it sounds as though you have like these old school who want to do it their way, and then you have this new. I don't know. How would you?
Well, I think that faced with that situation, I think what I would propose is first that everybody sits down and talks to each other.
Right.
And everybody lays their cards on the table.
Yeah, because it sounds as though everyone's on so many different pages.
Correct.
That's part of the problem.
Right. And the guy in the new market doesn't know what the guy on the old market, or the one that's been there, is doing. Right.
Right.
And certainly, well, that needs to be addressed first of all, because if we're all working for the same goal as to grow a company, then Hewlett Packard needs to sort of figure out, how do you not cannibalize this? I think that the other thing, and this actually, struck my memory, as you see in another products that are being sold. You know how St. Jude. Let's use St. Jude as an example. Okay.
Okay.
St. Jude has a section now I'm sorry, is it Abiomed or Abbott? I'm trying to remember. Abbott.
I think it's Abbott, right?
Yeah. So they have a section of mechanical circulatory support. Okay. But what they do in those instances, and they do this in industry, is they divide their sales teams, okay, into regions.
That's what I was just about to say, territories.
Right, territories. Thank you, territories. So there's a southeast territory and there is a northeast territory. Well, they have it done that way for the benefit of the organization, so that there's no confusion in the market.
Right.
And so I think that the solution that HP should propose is that for the resources that HP has, okay, well, they should put forward zones in which they are supposed to be marketing and going out and doing sales. So that way people are not tripping over each other.
Right, or competing against each other.
Right, and that doesn't prevent people, maybe let's say that you have a relationship, the new guy in the new market has a relationship with somebody on the opposite side, well, and they want to send people to buy in his store because, you know what, they're friends and they've known each other for a while. Well, that doesn't prevent that from happening. But ongoing resources to divide it up so that everybody's competing against each other may not be the wisest thing that HP can do. And so what I've actually thought about with this situation is that when you brand something as a product, okay, it's good enough. It's really good to have basically the brand up there that says HP, okay, or Nike, right, or GoPro or whatever. But then underneath the structure of the organization, what you should have is basically something that allows people to market the program or the company without having to cannibalize each other, because it's obvious that you know the power of one is obvious in that situation, whereas united we stand and divided we fall is another situation, right?
Right.
So anyway, that was an interesting dilemma that we faced recently, and I think that you know there should be, and I think there's going to be some conversations with HP to figure out how they're going to deal with this. But it was an interesting thing that happened to me over the weekend and over the week that'll be good probably for HP to sort of decide. So that was one thing that I wanted to run by you. The second thing. It's you know doing healthcare is very challenging, and it's so different from business in so many ways, because you know you deal and particularly in our specialty you deal with life and death.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, but with that there are sometimes many times ethical dilemmas that basically we struggle with. Okay. Right. And so, you know, I'm going to give you an example. I've got an example that struck close to home, and I've still been struggling with trying to figure out, but you know, it's not in the same line. I mean, I'm going to talk about what happened, but then I'm going to give you an example of some challenging situations that happened. So, you know, I had a while ago, I had a patient who basically was a drug addict and came in with endocarditis.
Okay. Current drug addict or previous drug addict?
Current drug addict.
Okay.
Okay. And basically was shooting up heroin and developing endocarditis. Okay. And for those of you listening, endocarditis is an inflammatory reaction of the heart, but it also is related to bacterial endocarditis or infection because of bacteria in the needles of people that are taking drugs. Anyway, so this person shows up with bacterial endocarditis, and basically is now in heart failure because the valves are not working. All right. So the question is, in that situation, you know, usually people are ambivalent about treating those because they know that the relapse associated to drug use is extremely high. And people, interestingly enough, people out there in the market, some people won't even touch the patient, saying, yeah, I'm not going to do it because I'm going to go through all this work only for the person to relapse again, and then basically inject themselves again, and then you're going to get now the valve that you replaced infected.
Right.
Okay. And so tough ethical dilemma. I usually in that situation err on the side of being proactive as to trying to treat the patient, right? I mean, because everybody is allowed to commit a mistake.
Absolutely.
Okay? And so as I'm forming my opinion about it, I think about, well, that is true. Now, it becomes a little prickly when you have somebody who's injected themselves and then you replace a valve because they have an infected valve. And then they come back, a month, 2 months, 3 months, a year later with the valve that you replaced infected. Well, now you've basically messed up and shown that you can't keep yourself clean. Now, addiction is a disease, just like is any other disease that we have in medicine. And we don't treat it, let me tell you, in the general scheme of things as a healthcare system, we don't treat that disease we are not that good as to treating addiction.
No, we are not.
I mean, that is, and addiction is just basically the end result of another psychological process that could be affecting the individual. And the reason that they're going into that is because they're depressed or they're manic or, a number of things, right? So addiction just happens to be the end result of it. And it dovetails a little bit into what we were talking about, the Surgeon General, and talking about Narcan that we talked about the other day, that we're treating addiction with Narcan, right? So that goes to show you how bad we are in treating.
When it comes to treating addiction, we cut off the tail of the snake. We're not going for the head of the snake. You know what I mean? We're not going for the main root problem of it. We're throwing all these other little knives at it, but not really. Like I said, the best analogy I can think of is with the snake. You want to kill a snake, you don't cut off the tail, you cut off the head.
Right.
Anyway,
but it's complicated. So anyway, I'm using this example to set the stage as to a problem that I wanted to get your opinion about. So, Mr. Z, okay, receives a heart transplant, okay?
Okay.
And after the transplant, things seem to be going well for a period of time, and then falls into depression.
Which is very common in transplant patients. Very common,
okay? And so it gets managed somewhat. And one night, he decides that enough is enough, and decides that he's going to stop taking his immunosuppressants.
Which for the general public, anti-rejection meds, which patients have to take to keep that transplant organ alive and thriving.
Okay. And this person is not that old. Okay. Let's say for argument's sake, they are 43.
Okay.
So we still have a lot of living to do.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. So after stopping taking the medicines, all right, the immunosuppressants, Mr. Z rejects his heart. And so he shows up to the hospital in full-blown heart failure. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And to the credit of the people taking care of Mr. Z, they do everything to save this person's life. They put him on ECMO. They support the heart. They blast him with really strong immunosuppressants and steroids. And now they actually have recovered the heart to a point that they can separate it from the ECMO, and his heart now is chugging along, but he's now on inotropes because he's injured the heart, and so now you've got a person who basically is on inotropes, and once you're on inotropes, you know that the clock is ticking.
Right.
Okay. So giving all this situation that the person literally purposely and because of depression stopped taking his immunosuppressants knowing that he was going to die. Okay.
So it was almost like a very slow form of suicide.
Right. Well, I mean, if you, I think that, I mean, and depends on the person, but let's suppose that this happens within 3 or 4 days, right? I mean, it probably happens within a week and nobody knew about it for a week. I mean, it's as deadly as actually, hanging yourself or injecting yourself with something, right? Or taking pills, to commit suicide. The bottom line is that the mechanism, the way that you get to the end is not the issue. It's more so of the intent that they're depressed. And so they want to do this. And, they decided that they were going to do this whether it's conscientiously or not. I mean, certainly there is an element of depression that's important here.
Right.
Okay. So now after saving the guy's life, and he kind of sort of says, oh my God, what am I doing? All this stuff. Okay. Now he said, I want to get another heart transplant because I don't want to die. So what's your opinion about what we should do with the patient? Because this person has already shown, and by the way, may have taken to social media saying before all this that he was unhappy and that he thought he wanted to take his life. Right? So he's depressed. He's for sure depressed.
Without a doubt.
Right? So do you give him the opportunity, or do you say, you know what, buddy, we're done? So what would you do?
Well, it's hard because, like, in this instance, you kind of feel like it's hard because you sit there, and I've sat in these selection committees before where patients have to meet a laundry list of criteria to be an appropriate candidate. And if they're still drinking, they're not a candidate. You know what I mean? So like things like that. So it's hard because of course you don't want to look at someone and basically play God and be like, nope, sorry, you don't get a heart. And you know what the end result is going to be. They're going to die.
Right.
And so, but then at the same time, transplanted organs are such precious, precious gifts that you want to shake the individual and be like, do you not realize, like, people lost a loved one, someone died for you to continue to live.
Right.
And you decided on a whim that you didn't cherish that and you didn't care anymore. I think the first thing that needs to happen is there needs to be some serious psych input, some serious psychological therapy, things like that. I think that to really determine, was this,
is this going to happen again, or
right? And they can't predict that, but I mean, we've got to get to the root cause of what happened with this. Because if it's the issue of the patient doesn't want to live because of guilt of having this transplanted organ or things like that, that's not going to change with the new heart. You know what I mean? Like, you've got to figure out what brought them to this point, what stemmed or what stimulated this depression. And is it something that can be controlled? Is it something that they did have an underlying psychological illness that needs to be managed and treated? Things like, and again, it's so hard because if I had a loved one that donated organs and I found out that person just on a whim decided to stop taking their meds and then they were being considered for retransplant, like, I would be furious. But that's when I'm close to the situation. When we're the outsiders looking in, you got to
protect everything, and you got to protect everybody and the patient, and so I,
not only that, you can't have it get out that, we just give out organs left and right when people decide that, I'm going to mess up this time, but I get a second chance.
Right.
Getting a transplant is your second chance. Like, this isn't baseball.
Exactly. They should have. So what I typically tell patients is that if you're on a VAD and you're getting a transplant, or if you're getting a VAD, remember that the time that you got that replacement therapy, you were going to die. I mean, that's as close as death as you were. And now we're giving you a second chance and you're not taking care of it. Now, granted, in the framework of somebody who has the rationale and the ability not to be influenced by a disease, okay, I get it. But depression is such a difficult thing to deal with and to manage. And let me tell you, everybody suffers of depression at some point in their lives. Now, the difference is that you have mechanisms to get you out of it. Okay. And whether it's a support group, it's whether your family, it's whether basically,
it's whether also if you act on it.
And that's my problem here. My problem is that this is not somebody who just simply had depression. This is somebody who basically took action, whether under the influence or not. Okay. Because I mean, it is incredible to me that those grades are totally different. Now, listen, I get the responsibility of us taking care of somebody. Okay.
Right.
I get that responsibility. But I often wonder if, let's suppose that this is a situation that happened in another program and the person came in seeking help to our program. Now there is, there's a time that you have to sort of wait and figure out. I think that most programs, if you got somebody who's actually taking action in terms of their own lives, asking to be transplanted, I think that any transplant's going to raise an eyebrow and say, we're going to need some heavy coaching here, boss.
Right.
Because the responsibility to us and to the program is also there.
Right.
You can't simply just say, oh yeah, we're going to do this. I mean, listen, and again, I don't want to sound, callous but that is a huge gift that they're giving you.
Yes, absolutely.
And I have a huge problem giving it out just on people that haven't shown merit for it.
I agree. I mean, and like I said, I knew when I said this is such a hard situation, it's a hard situation because I don't want to ever feel like you're playing God. And that's when you say, yes, you deserve this, or no, you don't deserve it. But when you put it to paper, like when you look at it, you're like, they tried to end their life after having received this organ, and now they want another one. It's mind boggling. It really is. And it's such a hard situation, especially with transplant.
Well,
like when you said the valve surgery earlier, because when I worked in open heart surgery, like, yes, you had those endocarditis patients and they did go back to shooting up. But in my mind, I was like, you know what? They've been through this surgery. If they want to go shoot up again and have to do this again, that's on them. Like, they're not taking a gift from someone else. So it's a little different when you come to that. As a surgeon, I understand your point.
Yeah. And so one of the things that I do think on both instances is important to realize is that these decisions, particularly when it comes to transplants and LVADs, are done by a group of people that are incredibly invested in the patient. And that's one of the beautiful things about having a selection committee, right?
Right. Because it's not one person that's making the decision.
Not, and it should never be one person making the decision.
No, I was shocked when I sat in on my first selection committee to just see every facet of healthcare that was involved. It was mind-blowing.
Yeah. And so everybody's opinion is heard. And certainly there's always people that do it louder than others and sometimes can sway a group because of their arguments. I mean, it's just like anything else. The harder you bargain, the more likely is it that you're going to get what you want, or at least part of what you want. So in going back to I'll tell you how I'm very proud of the way that we've dealt with things always, whether people get what they want or not, is that in both situations, the thing is that we created a contract with that particular patient. So I'll tell you, using the analogy of the drug addict, okay, as an example, and I'm going to, again, going back to the example of how much we suck at managing depression and addiction, all that stuff. And it's not the same situation, but it is with the transplant patient that I described, it's the same thing. It's similar to it when it comes to depression and how bad we are on it. With the drug addict, what I did in that situation is I called in ethics. And I had a very thorough evaluation from the ethics committee and also from psychiatry to make sure the person was competent enough to make a decision, right? Because if they can't, if they're that impeded by depression or whatever condition they have, then the game's over, right? And then we write a contract about exactly what we are going to do in case that person lapses again, right? So for the drug addict, it was, okay, we're going to do your valve, but you got to do this. I mean, it was onerous. There was a lot of things that the person had to do.
Okay. And they should have to.
Right. And so it was signed. And I told that to the patient that was doing drugs. I said, trust me, we do this. Nobody, and you come back doing drugs, nobody's going to touch you.
Right.
Nobody's going to touch you. I'm not going to touch you. Right.
Right.
So anyway, we did that with the person who was doing drugs, and, discharged the patient and all that stuff. And unfortunately, this is actually not a happy story, but the person went back to doing drugs and showed up with several broken needles in a leg.
Ooh. Okay.
So snap needles. I don't know how you do that, but in any case, so that was that story. But I think that with the transplant patient, we went through a similar process, which is really good because now it's clear directives and everybody agreed that was the way to go. But those were two interesting situations that occurred over the week. It's not as bubbly and happy as we had done other shows, but that's a reality of the world that we live in right now. I mean,
it is,
and that's kind of the thing. But in any case, we're gonna one more thing that I wanted to put out there that has to do with health is that you saw that thing about coffee and in California that a judge ruled that coffee should be labeled as a carcinogen or that has a product. Okay. We are taking things a little too far here. This was in California. And the issue is a byproduct of the processing of coffee or that's in coffee. It's called acrylamide that apparently has been shown to be carcinogenic.
Well, isn't everything carcinogen? Aren't we going to figure that out down the line? I mean, walking outside, I'm breathing in exhaust from cars. Like that's a carcinogen.
They should put a sign outside saying, don't go outside because smog causes cancer. I mean, listen, this judge has really taken it to such a big level that I think it actually scratches on the part of being ridiculous. Okay.
Absolutely.
Because what I found out after I read the article, acrylamide is found in almost everything that we consume, in chips, in processed foods. It's like everything should have a label of it could cause cancer.
Right.
And we're spending money doing this. Come on, guys.
No, I completely agree.
With that being said, I think that's all the time we have. I'm going to go have another cup of coffee.
Well, it was a great show this morning. Thanks for taking the time to listen to us, and we look forward to having you guys back next week on Genuine. This is Ash and Gonzo signing off. Have a great weekend.
See you guys.